Today on Homeworthy, we're bringing you to the English countryside for a look inside columnist and interior decorator Rebecca Lovatt's utterly charming 17th century cottage. A labor of love, Rebecca thoughtfully restored the property into an inviting home that defines the beauty of country living. Inside, you'll find a brilliant collection of cherished family heirlooms, pillowy cushions, and of course, lots of chintz. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. By clicking the join button below, you not only support the production of these videos, you also gain access to exclusive content just for members, including an inside look today into Rebecca's stables that she converted into the coziest guest cottage. Join today to see more of the homes you love.
Hi Homeworthy, I'm Rebecca. Welcome to our very crumbly, very rainy thatched cottage in the middle of nowhere. Come on in. So this is the entrance hall to the cottage. It's tiny, like all small cottages. We think it was built in about 1650 and was probably 2 rooms, but potentially could have all been one massive room. So this wouldn't even have been the entranceway, but it is the smallest room in the house. And it's great fun in the morning when the kids are trying to get ready for school. It's got the original brick flooring, which is beautiful. And then I've crammed in as much as possible, as many straw hats and bags, because I have a little bit of a passion about straw bags and straw hats, but they're very useful, so I need them hanging up. This is one of my aprons hanging up, also very useful. And that's pretty much all I can say about our hallway because it's absolutely tiny. So I added a little bit of glitz and glamour. I know it is supposed to be a farm worker's cottage and they would have had sheep and pigs living in here at some point, but I had to have this French chandelier that I spent probably 2 years sourcing and finally found a little shop in Kent and just had to have it. And it's also quite useful because the ceilings are really low, so it's actually quite difficult to get a light fitting. So a flush chandelier was absolutely perfect. They call it sac à pearl, which I think is so beautiful. A bit like a pig's purse, I suppose. This is a Baroque mirror that, again, I had to have that isn't entirely cottagey, but it just reflects a light. And I have to have a tiny little bit of glamour. It's not all straw bags. So let's step into the sitting room now. This is the room that actually captured our hearts when we first saw the cottage online. It was just the most stunning room, and I remember saying to my husband, can you even imagine living in a cottage like that? It was painted dark red, so it was completely empty. The house had been empty for nearly 2 years, and it was just somewhere that you walked into and just thought, oh my gosh, this is where our family should be. And I fell in love, funnily enough, with the dark red walls and then lived with it for about a year and then went, it's really dark. I'm not sure I can live in a really dark room anymore. I am a little creature of light. So it was a bit of a travesty to get rid of the dark red because it actually matched the red of the roses that are outside. But instead I got some curtains made with the gorgeous red that matched the original paint on the walls. I did go through a variety of colours in here, including farrow and balls, setting plaster, and then I went for a crazy dark blue because I thought, actually, you know what, you're supposed to encompass gorgeous north-facing rooms with dark colours. And again, I just, no, I need it to be light. So everywhere is an off-white, and then I brought the colour in with all the accessories, as you can see. So this is Dottie. This is her favourite spot in the entire cottage, actually, which is why it's so muddy. So don't look at this bit, please, because this is where she likes to jump up to. She can see Clive the robin outside, who actually flies past and perches to taunt her. He likes her to go outside and she chases him round and round and round, then he flies up into the tree and comes back down. Occasionally he does actually come in through the window or through the front door and he'll fly over and he'll come and say, oh, actually I've moved the music stand, but he'll come and perch on the music stand, and that makes Dottie absolutely furious. In fact, she's growling now because I think she's just remembering how irritating it is. Yes, Dottie, very good. Oh, it's a lovely waggy tail. Well done. And it also means that she can see any visitors coming to the gate, the horse riders that she barks at, and the cyclists and the walkers. Oh, yes, yeah, and yes, yeah, she does like barking an awful lot. So this is the sort of centre, the hub, really, of our sitting room, mainly because it has the wood burner in it. Old cottages do get very, very, very cold. So I had the curtains that I had made up in this gorgeous Kate Forman fabric that I just fell in love with, and it took me 5 years, but eventually I got the curtains of my dreams. I had them lined with a Titley and Marr ticking stripe because you can't beat florals and stripes. It makes me really happy. And then our poor curtain lady, I'd seen someone with frilly topped curtains and just thought, I have to have this in here. So I drew this really rough sketch because I couldn't find the curtains again, and handed it to our curtain lady and said, please, please, will you make these curtains of my dreams? And somehow she did. It was quite extraordinary. One of her ladies was making it up, and she said, one day I will have my house full of these curtains. They are so beautiful. And it's been probably 8 years now. We've been here 11 years. And I still smile every time I open the curtains in the morning. They make me so happy. I think one of my tips when people ask about designing is spend as much money as possible on fabrics, because you see the quality and you can see how it hangs, as well as the fact that it's really thick blanket lining to stop the drafts coming in, because we are grade 2 listed, so we can't touch any of the exterior or do really any work inside. We have to make sure it's all keeping the original fabric of the building, so it's single pane and it does get jolly cold. So blanket line curtains are the way forward, as well as blankets and sheepskin rugs and our wood burner, which is a lifesaver. In the winter, we all sit in here most of the time, because if you have the heating on, which is oil fired, it fills the entire cottage, which you don't actually need. So we tend to just huddle around here with cups of tea and glasses of wine in the evening, and force the children to play board games occasionally, so we feel like a good family. So yes, this is our main in the winter room. Although we do in the summer tend to use it, it's more just my husband and I. And then we have this door open here, and we can then just sit outside. When it gets a little chilly, we can come back in again. When we first moved in, I was obsessed with the fact that the cottage was completely empty. We used to drive up and just peek through the windows at this gorgeous bare bones of a cottage and imagine living here. So in my head, I designed almost like a French farmhouse with just wooden bowls and simple as possible. And somehow I've ended up with floral craziness. Bit by bit, my personality has just come through and overridden the design that I actually planned. So I have filled it with soft furnishings and cushions and just things to make you feel really comfortable. So I love cabbages and roses. I love Hessian. This is a lovely Victorian chair under here, but it's been dogified and childified, so this little blanket covers it rather well. This was the first piece that we bought before we'd even bought the cottage. That's how convinced I was that we had to live in this magical place. We found it in an antique store about half an hour from here, and I just thought it's so perfect for storing toys. So as soon as people came over, I just throw all the toys into the trunk. Job done. It looked like the perfect house again, apart from the Cheerios and the socks that were also on the floor. And now it's got sort of more grown-up toys in, which makes me a little bit sad. There's still the Toy Story things, which makes me happy. This is a carpet that I actually found on eBay. I was desperate to try and fill the space with more colour and warmth. And there was a college professor in Cambridge who was retiring and moving back to India. So he had 2 rugs that I just were perfect for here. I was so lucky. So this is one of them. Again, we've got some more delicious floral cushions. This is from Velvet Linen, who actually, with these dies, she uses the flowers from her garden. It's quite extraordinary. These are the oldest sofas possibly in history. We had them when we first bought. We used to live in a cottage by a canal up in Cheshire. And these are when we first got married. So it's many, many, many years ago, though I'm very young. But really, they are quite saggy and a bit like me, I suppose. This is another stuffed bookcase. That was another piece that I bought when we first moved in. I bought it from, I think, eBay for about £5 and then painted it up and put the wallpaper from our old cottage into it, though it's now so full of books you can't actually see the wallpaper. This is a painting. Again, I love florals and I love colour. This is my husband's great aunt, Muriel Pemberton, and she was a very famous painter who thankfully loved florals and colour, so her paintings just work so beautifully in our house. She was an extraordinary woman, actually. She was at the Royal College of Art and realised she didn't really like her course very much, and she wanted to study textiles, but there wasn't a textile course to study. So she went to her professor and said, I really want to study textiles. If I create a course, can I study it and then teach it? And the head of Royal College of Art said, well, absolutely, that's absolutely fine by me, go for it. So she did, and it became incredibly successful. And she taught people like Bruce Oldfield and Vivienne Westwood, and then she taught at St Martin's. So it's just one of those lovely, empowering, dream big, and they will come true. So I love this house being filled with her paintings. I think it's lovely for the children and a lovely story. When we first moved in, this was just a very plain wall, which I had painted dark blue and then setting plaster. But I had a huge collection of books that actually stayed in our stables for about 5 years. And eventually we got the bookcase made. Now, because it's grade 2 listed, we couldn't just actually build it against the wall. We had to put in a false wall to protect the far wall, and then we could build the bookcase. So it took a long time, and our poor carpenter was slightly broken by the whole experience. But I love it. I've always dreamt of having a wall of books that I can run to and quickly, okay, I need this, and I just grab my book, and it's the most satisfying thing in the world. I used to be an actress and I was classically trained at LAMDA, so I love Shakespeare. And for me, you need to pick up the play and you need to pick up the words to see them, to feel it, which sounds ridiculous, but it's true. So I love just being able to pop and get it. And my daughter is now really enjoying her drama. She's 12 and they're studying Much Ado at the moment. So I was able to rush over to pick up the play and say, look at this, see these words? This is the funny bit with the deck chair. And she's really enjoying it, which makes me so happy. One of my dreams was to be able to sit in the window seat and read my books and my plays. And I find her sitting here now doing it, which makes me beyond happy. To share a love of books is so important. My mother was the same with us. I mean, she would force us to sit by the fireside and read poetry, which we didn't enjoy when we were little, but it has imbued me with a love of words, which is probably why I love writing so much, and a love of drama and theatre and fiction and falling into a story. That's my real happy place. So for me, this is my happy place. I also bought some velvet poufs to be able to collapse on. This was my idea of probably I'd sit on the window seat and my children would sit at my feet whilst I read to them. That hasn't quite happened, but Dottie's very good at sitting on them and covering them with marks. So if they look grubby, again, that's a Dottie. This sideboard was actually my mother-in-law's mother's. And in our old house, it worked really well because it was a very white open space cottage, and in here I was worried that it would be too dark, but it just fits right in. It works so well with the oak beams, and one of the things I love about it the most is my mother-in-law remembers hiding inside the sideboard when she was tiny. So when she comes to stay, it's lovely that she will look at that and she still remembers that now, which is really magical. These are some antique pineapple lamps that, again, I just had to add a little bit more glitz and glamour to the cottage. Another one of Muriel's beautiful paintings. And what else have we got over here? This is a painting by one of my friends, Emma Perring. I actually met her through Instagram and she's become a really dear friend, and as soon as she paints something, I steal it and bring it into my cottage and say, don't sell it yet, it's just got to come and live here for a bit. So I'm so lucky I get these extraordinary paintings. Again, florals that I absolutely love. I think when you live in a dark cottage, we have a huge thatch that overhangs it, so it can be really dark. You need to fill it with colour and florals and uplifting things, so I'm very lucky to have met her. This is our piano that was my mother's. It was a very dark, shiny, it sucked the life out of the room. So she agreed that I could paint it, which was really lovely of her. And I checked the piano tune and I was saying, will it affect the sound? And I don't know, you'll just have to try it. So I did, and thankfully it now bounces the light from the window and hasn't affected the sound, which is great. I can't really play. I can play a few chords to help my daughter, but my daughter plays, and we have brilliantly talented friends who used to be in musicals in the West End. So every Christmas party, we all gather around here and they play the songs and we all sing really terribly. And you can see them go, oh, it's not like being in the West End anymore. But we have a lovely time. So this is another little hub of the home. This is the original mullioned window, which when it was built would have been level, but year by year it just slopes a little bit more. I suppose a bit like me actually again. But I love that. This is the real character of the house. When you can see something that was built in 1600, that's just mind-blowing. You can touch the wood. It just makes me really happy. One of the things I fell in love with this room is the fact that there is a little door outside. So in the summer, it's always open, so you can hear the birds, which I just love. So follow me outside to the garden. Oh, I sound like a wildlife person. This is our back garden. These are the roses that were the inspiration for my curtains. So I get very excited at this time of year when the dark red roses appear and then they match my curtains. We're also lucky enough to have an old wisteria that grows up the back of the cottage. We have had a few discussions over pruning it, and there was one year that my husband hacked it back to virtually nothing. So since then, neither of us have touched it. So it is a little overgrown and it does need a prune, but we're now both too scared to actually touch it. We've still got some beautiful flowers on it, and it's magical in May sitting at this table, and the smell of the wisteria is so strong. It's just glorious. This is the table where we eat as much as possible because you have to make the most of it if it's not raining, which is quite rare now. It seems to rain all the time. The cottage sits in about an acre of land, which we've partitioned up. So at the front we have a sort of herb bed and a wildflower bed, and that's where all our apple trees are. And then at the back, bit by bit, my husband is making it more of a garden. So when we first moved in, the fence over there, that was all paddock for ponies. But we were very clear that we did not want ponies. I grew up with horses and it's really hard work. So when my son got interested in horses, that's when the whole paddock was changed into a garden as quickly as possible. It goes quite far back. There's a climbing frame at the very back that's now been covered by mainly trees, but we're also growing an orchard on the right hand side, and we have lots of dams and trees at the back, and on the left that's where our kitchen garden is, which is very slow work in progress, but it is wonderful to go down and pick your own vegetables that you grew and cutting flowers, which makes me really excited. We've got a cherry tree there, we've got pear trees that are just about to start their little pear journey, which is really exciting, and a beautiful rambling rector rose that is just about to flower as well. So I like to sit under there because the smell is extraordinary, and the sound of the bees buzzing in the morning is just out of this world fabulous. This is where we host friends in the summer, and we tend to add more chairs so all the grown-ups can sit around, and then the children just run wild in the garden and we don't see them for a long time, which is quite lovely actually when you've got small children. Ours are older now, so it's not quite the same thing. One of my favourite things to do is table styling, and I think that's how really one of the things why my Instagram took off. I go all out. I think when you've got guests coming, you've invited them to your home and you want them to feel welcome. So I will cover it in tablecloths and cushions and candles and silver and my best plates and as many flowers as I can gather and fit onto the table with the food as well. When friends come in, they tend to come through the side entrance, and if they go, oh wow, I know I've done my job properly. It's funny, I was talking to my best friend the other day and saying, I just love styling, and I'd forgotten how much I love styling. And she said, but you've always done it. Why is that any surprise to you? Whenever you've had friends over, whenever we've been over, you love to fill the table with loveliness. And it's something that never occurred to me. I just do it naturally. I want people to feel special and feel spoiled. So I will go all out. And if it wasn't raining, there would be a delicious setup here with candles and plates and maybe even some food. I don't know. Unfortunately, it's beginning to pour down with rain, so we might just have to go inside, and maybe we'll do it inside instead. So out of the rain and into the kitchen. This is one of my favourite rooms in the house. It's probably where I spend most of my time, certainly in the summer anyway. In fact, even in the winter, I tend to be huddled by the Arga, keeping warm if I'm not in the sitting room. So I love this room so much. When we first came to view the property, we were peering through those windows just to see what was in here, and there was absolutely nothing in here. We had the Arga, which we were really lucky, and then there was quite a nasty worktop there. So we took that out, and then I decided that I wanted to try and honour the sense of history with the house. I didn't want to put in a new fitted kitchen because I just didn't think that worked. So I bought a second-hand sink and a Belfast sink because I wanted it to have that lovely country feel to it. And I just couldn't wait to be standing at that sink looking out over the front garden. That was one of the things I was really looking forward to, which is a bit weird actually, isn't it? I also was really looking forward to cooking on the Arga. I love cooking on the Arga. Baking, I love. And it took me a while to work out how to bake in an Arga because there's no temperature setting. You just have to work out whereabouts in the Arga to put it. And in the summer, the Arga burns everything. And in the winter, it doesn't cook anything. So it takes quite a while to get used to. But now I just would not be without it. I love her so much. She is temperamental. So I do call her Dame La Arga because she decides when she'll cook something and when she won't. Oh, Dottie, be careful. What else did I do? I bought this island because it's such a huge space. I felt we could manage to have an island that I could prep on because there isn't an enormous amount of worktop because we didn't want to go fitted. So we decided to keep it as simple as possible with unfitted furniture. So I brought in the sink, I brought in the kitchen island, which can be moved for dancing and very often is when we have friends over. I bought this dresser from my very first home decades ago. No, not decades ago because I'm very young, probably about 2 years ago actually. But yes, when I first moved out, I bought this dresser from a chap in Brighton who made them, and I was looking everywhere for a pine dresser and suddenly discovered this man, and he had this just warehouse full of dressers and tables that he'd made. So I ended up also buying the pine table as well. But they have been with me ever since, and I really love that. So I could never get rid of this dresser, even though it's not necessarily quite the right style. I can't get rid of it because it's got my heart in it. It's also got my enormous collection of china that seems to grow daily, which is really peculiar. I think it's like rabbits. It's got lots of china from my mother-in-law and her mother. Now, what's brilliant is her mother was sister of Muriel Pemberton, the artist. And my mother-in-law's mother was actually the first female pottery owner in Stoke-on-Trent, which is quite an extraordinary achievement. Again, another extraordinary woman. I think she eventually sold out to Wedgwood, who just wanted a piece of her delicious factory. But she created some really gorgeous pieces. They were called Aristocrat. So I've got lots of her china here that I love using because, again, it's just a wonderful part of history. My husband will spend wherever we are, when we go to an antique shop or we go, I don't know, to glorious shops with china, he'll always turn them over to see where they're from. And there's quite a lot of sniffiness goes on that I have now taken on board as well, which probably isn't a good thing, but it does mean that I know a little bit more about china and now love collecting it. I do also have a second dresser, which does seem a bit strange, but I wanted unfitted. I actually originally bought this dresser because I was at the time buying furniture and painting it up and then selling it on. But I bought this and it took me a really long time. It was that sort of nasty orange pine, and it took me a long time to strip it and paint it. And then once I'd finally finished it, and it was in here for a long time with people stepping over it, I just fell in love with it. And I actually couldn't sell it, which is why I never did particularly well at painting furniture, because I generally kept most of it. It wasn't the greatest business idea in the world. But I love this dresser and I think it fits in really well. And I don't think it looks too bizarre having two dressers because it is just a country kitchen. And as my mother-in-law says, it's a cottage. It's just an old cottage. So you can get away with whatever you want, quite frankly. This is a very old Laura Ashley sofa. Again, this was one of my dreams, to have a kitchen where I could have a sofa in it. So Dottie and I spend quite a lot of time sitting here in the afternoons having a cup of tea. This is another one of Muriel's paintings. These are her Yugoslavian paintings when she was studying textiles and teaching textiles. So again, really important, and just something lovely to have that relationship with, particularly for the children, I think. What else have we got? So this is the table that I also accidentally bought at the same time as buying the dresser. I do a lot of accidental purchases, but what I love about this, so this was with me in my house in London when I was a drama student. So it's had lots of famous actors sitting around here, lots of my best friends from when I was tiny. In fact, my friend Nicola was here the other day and she was feeling her elbows and she was saying, I wonder if there are indentations of my elbows on this table from sitting and drinking wine with you late into the night, which I really love. I can't see them. There is a lot of glitter from the children when they were little, but it holds my history, and I think that's what makes a home. If you have things that your heart feels really happy about and that has years and years of your family, that makes it your place and your home. Our cottage is fortunate enough to be on the border of 3 different counties. So we have Suffolk, Cambridgeshire and Essex, which means we are surrounded by the most beautiful countryside and glorious thatched cottages. And it is definitely a slower pace of life, which I have had to adapt to. I moved from London many years ago up to Cheshire, so got used to living in the countryside. But coming here was really different. There's a really magical feel to round here. It's a slower way of life, but I think a much happier way of life. We have fields of crops all around us. We're lucky enough to have our own veg plot, our own cutting garden for flowers. These are all actually from the front garden where, when we were little, the children would take the seed heads of these aquilegia and they'd spread them all over the flower bed, which means now we just have a gazillion aquilegia popping up every May, which makes me really happy. We are surrounded by cow parsley, which again, I cannot wait for May to arrive, because then I know the hedgerows will be frothing and bubbling with gloriousness, and that makes me really happy after a very long, dark, cold winter. You are desperate to have green. So in the winter, you can see for miles and miles and miles because it's completely bare. And then suddenly April happens and you get sunshine and rain and it's just an explosion of green. And it's peculiar. You'll walk past the window and think, oh gosh, I'm not used to that view, because suddenly the colour is different and it changes the light everywhere. And it bonds you with the countryside. It makes it a really special place to live. So I'm really lucky. I'm really lucky to be able to pop outside and pick some flowers. And yes, they're probably buttercups and cow parsley as well as all my cutting flowers. But that's what makes it so special. So I've got the aquilegia and the cow parsley. And then I've got some snapdragons that are just beginning to come through, which is wonderful. I love the dark colour on these. These are from my cutting garden. What else have I got? Some peonies that aren't quite in bud yet. I was really hoping they might have popped by now. So I'm sorry, peonies, I've cut you a bit early, but they make me really excited. We've got hops hanging from the ceiling. That's such an old fashioned thing to have, but it again brings in the countryside and brings in that sense of where you are and farming. And when they first arrive, the smell is extraordinary. It's so fresh and it's supposed to help you sleep, actually. It's a really good soporific. But then they dry to this gorgeous colour. And I remember reading a book, I think it was from the 1970s, about cottage charm. And I think that just stuck in my head. So I knew I had to have hops when we moved in here, because that's what cottages have to be, charming. But they also need an Aga, and this is our very old, very elderly, but happy little Aga when she works. A rocking chair, which I've had since I was about 13, I think. I became really interested in interior design at a very young age. So my poor mother, I'd say, today I am going to sponge the walls pink and grey to look like clouds. Yeah, I mean, that was the early 90s. And I needed a rocking chair. Everything had to be cosy and comfortable. So I suppose it's always been like that. But what I love is that these things have travelled with me since when I was really little, but they still work in our home. So that's a really fortunate thing. We'll go upstairs now. A lot of people actually go into our pantry to try and go upstairs. Initially, this was the sitting room and through there was the kitchen. So I think the stairs probably were originally located there, which is really unusual that people make their way there. I love that. Anyway, these are now the stairs here. So we will go upstairs and have a little explore. Coming upstairs, you will notice the bookcase behind me that does look impossible to get to. The original plan, I'd bought these antique ladders, which were so beautiful, and I was suggesting that we could have it as a banister coming up the stairs so it hooked over, but when you wanted to get the books, you'd unhook it, pop it against the books, you can reach your Agatha Christie's no problem. That still hasn't happened, and that's about 5 years ago. So instead, we very carefully balance our feet either side. So my husband dreads it when I say, oh, I really fancy reading an Agatha Christie tonight. Now, this section of the hallway is what persuaded my children that we had to move in here, because the floor slopes so enormously that they were able to have their wheelie bugs and they would simply glide down the hallway into my son's bedroom, which they absolutely loved. When we first moved here, we had friends to stay, and one chap came out of the bathroom and said, I'm not sure if I had too much wine or if I'm on a ship, but this is seriously sloped. And it's one of the many reasons that I love this cottage. It's wonky and it's wobbly, but that's what makes it charming, I think. This is the shall not be seen children's section. I can't believe I'm actually allowing you to see it, but this is where they store all their books. And then they sit on this bench, which is filled with their dressing up from when they were little, and I haven't had the heart to empty it yet. We used to have children over all the time, and they'd be Batman and Spider-Man and princesses running around. So that's still in there for now because I can't get rid of it. But yes, this is now their book section, which is just stacked and stacked and stacked. And I've actually did an edit on it about 3 months ago, but it just seems to have filled back up again. This is my friend Emma Perring again. And when I started the book blog, I asked her if she would paint something for me as a sort of almost like a logo for Are You Sitting Comfortably? And she painted that for me, which is our Arga. And I love it so much. And I love that it's just fitted in here with all the kids' books. It just makes me really happy again. This is our main bedroom, which has the world's widest floorboards. Okay, that's not actually true, but the floorboards are made from the original trees that were cleared to create this cottage. They are wobbly, they are wonky, and yes, as so many people will point out, you can very easily lose things down them, but I couldn't cover them up. They were totally covered up when we came, and we pulled back this old carpet and discovered them and just thought, okay, it's not going to be soft, and I'm going to lose a lot of tights and my husband's going to lose a lot of socks, but they are too beautiful to be hidden, and they are what create the character of this room. I love them so much. So I'm afraid they're staying, and we just have to have slightly painful feet all of the time. I also did invent, well actually no, it was my mother-in-law invented it, a biro with a little bit of blue tack stock on the end, so you can pop it down the floorboards and pick up whatever you've lost. There's no problem at all. This is another Emma Perring painting, which I absolutely love, of Norfolk. We're only about an hour and a half away from Norfolk, so it's one of our very precious places. This is a set of bedroom furniture that I bought for our second house, I think. Really cheap from eBay, dark wood, nobody wanted it. And I painted it all up. And actually I really love it now, and I think it fits in really well here. This is our wedding sheepskin rug that's so old, but does mean that we don't hurt our poor little feet as we go into the bathroom at night. This I waited a long time for. I love it so much. I think it really suits the style of the bedroom. Yes, it's propped up on books, as virtually everything is in this house, because again, the floor is so wonky. I often get questions, why is your bed on books? Do you love books so much? Well, yes, I do love books so much, but it is also the fact that otherwise our feet would be much, much further down than our heads. So we had to prop it up with books. And I do love books, so I think it works okay. We have lovely views out over the fields. So on the rare occasion when I can actually stay in bed till maybe even 7:30, I love sitting in bed and just looking out over the fields at the moment, watching the rain come in. It's very romantic. Another one of my interior passions is cushions. I can't help it. I just keep buying them, and there it is, it's out there. There's nothing I can do about it. I would have even more if I could. My husband has drawn the line at this amount on the bed. The front ones are Coco and Wolf Liberty deliciousness, so I had to have them. They're just so pretty. The back ones are handmade patchwork. I just love pink and green, as you can probably see from in here, and it matches my friend Emma Perring's painting up there, so it works really well. The curtains again were another, oh my gosh, this is the fabric I have to have. I love cabbages and roses. This is Paris rose, interlined with blanket lining again to keep it warm, but they just create the most beautiful patterns. So I wear it in my dresses and I wear it on my curtains, and I don't care. This is our tiny ensuite next to our bedroom, and my first foray into wallpapering in here, which is very exciting. I've got this gorgeous Luciana Ball alternative of William Morris, and I just love the colours. It's so rich and pretty. I wanted to keep our bedroom cool and calm for perfect sleep, but I let myself have just a little bit more colour entering into this room, and I really enjoy it. I love looking out of the window in the morning at our converted stables and all the farm buildings beyond. In the spring, you get the blossom coming up on the trees, the birds start to go crazy, and it's a really wonderful way to wake up in the morning. This is my daughter's newly decorated bedroom. We finally got rid of the fairies, which was utterly heartbreaking. For me, not my daughter, she's 12, she was ready to get rid of the fairies. I was not. I'd spent years dreaming of making this fairy room for her. Anyway, I'm actually over the moon. I'm so excited. I kept walking past the fairies, stroking them, thinking, I'll never be able to live without them. But I love this. It's widened the room. Having quite a busy pattern on two walls has just opened it up. And roses and flowers, well, you can't beat roses and flowers, but it's just added, it's a little bit more grown up. It's not too grown up. We've still kept her little princess four-poster bed, but it's a lovely in-between now, I think. Laura Ashley have helped me to create something really magical, actually. I wanted it to be a sort of Anne of Green Gables meets somebody who might actually quite like Taylor Swift. It's quite niche, and there's no Taylor Swift posters yet, but she loves it. She's over the moon. Mainly with the rug, because it's so soft and comfortable underfoot, because the poor thing has been on a very slopey, slippery floor. When she has friends to sleep over, we put a mattress here, and they wake up in the morning generally underneath the bed because they slip further and further down. When she first started school, she had a little friend over, and the friend went home and said to her mummy, Verity's got a hill in her room. How can I get a hill in my room? That's how much of a slope it is. So hopefully this rug will stop children falling under the bed. So it's really a safety rug as well as being utterly beautiful. I bought the little lamp to tie in with the colours of the wallpaper. I wanted to bring more colour in without it being overpowering, because it is a small room. So I've just done that through matching, bringing out the yellows and the pinks and the light blues, stripes on the bed to match the stripes of the curtains. The wardrobe I fell in love with as soon as I saw it in the new collection, and just thought, well, I've got to have that. I measured it, I did measure it. I made sure that the ceiling was absolutely, even with the curve, it would still fit in. What I forgot to do was measure the entrance to the door and the entrance to the stairs. So my poor husband had to take all the architraving off, and the poor men delivering it, they had a small tear before they managed to get it up the stairs once we'd taken the banister off. But it fits and it looks beautiful. So I am delighted. Hopefully we've nailed Anne of Green Gables, and eventually some Taylor Swift will come into it. I write for Pre-Loved magazine, so secondhand, pre-loved is really important to me. I didn't want everything new in this room. So this bed we actually bought from eBay, oh gosh, years and years ago. So I really wanted to keep that, as well as the chest. This desk replaced the Barbie house. And we bought this from Facebook Marketplace, and we were so lucky. Yes, it's a little bit knocked, but I think that adds to the charm of it. It fits in with the rest of the house. Ditto the chair. We've kept the cot that I bought years ago from eBay and painted up for my daughter, and so far that's been allowed to stay, so I'm delighted with that. The lampshade is the original one that I bought for this room. The fairy curtains had to go, which again was devastating, but we have sold those on, and Tori Murphy made me up these most beautiful rose linen stripy curtains that make me really happy. There is something about fabric and curtains and cushions that just make me so excited. So hopefully it all now blends in, and it's a mix of old and new, which I think is really important. And what's lovely is that it's really important to my daughter, and I think the younger generation are so much more switched on to the older generations make, do and mend. My parents' generation, it's our generation that got a little bit lost, and we need to find that again. But hopefully this room is balancing that a little bit. Thank you so much for visiting Homeworthy. It's been so wonderful to talk through my home and my interiors. I'm sorry, I probably talked far too much. And I'm also sorry for sending you back out into the horrible rain now. But thank you very, very much for visiting our cottage. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.